And me being like, well, who am I? If I say I'm not a psychotherapist and people ask what I do, like, what do I say?
Answer the question.
I still can't say.
Well, here's what usually comes up. If you go into that question, you go a few layers down. Without this, I'm a loser. Without this, I'm nothing. It's something bad. Most of us are starting from this place
like
of
not enough.
Yes. Without this job, without this income, without these people around me,
or identity,
without this thing, it's not from a place of enough. It's like, yeah, I'm good as I am.
Right.
It's like, no, if you take this away, then like I'm starting from a place of I'm a piece of shit, or I'm not enough, or I'm a loser, or whatever. Okay, that's what we're really trying to avoid. That's why we're striving so hard for this other stuff. If we were starting from a place of enough, then it would be a game. It'd be fun. It'd be playful. But the stakes are so high because there's so much to reveal or so much to lose.
You are listening to The New Man, Beyond the Macho Jerk and the New Age Wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
You ever fantasize about escaping your current life? Is fear the one that's setting your goals and expectations? And do you have any idea what would truly bring you peace of mind? Today, Alyson and I try to help a listener who's tired of the grind and wants to hit the eject button. We discuss how to know if you're on the right track, why we pile on the pressure to succeed, and accessing our deeper selves to find peace of mind.
All right.
All right.
Are you ready, or do you need to vent about your new big black computer?
Wow.
I noticed you got the big black one.
All right. What are you doing here?
Are you ready? Do you need to vent about all the things that just happened technically?
I am frustrated. Technically.
Yeah.
Technically frustrated.
Technically frustrated.
New computer, new problems.
Yeah.
How are you? You were frustrated earlier.
This morning?
Yeah, now you're making me sound. Now I'm frustrated.
The only thing that frustrated me was I was trying to do what I was trying to do, and I had the dog wanting to distract me, and you were over my shoulder talking about wanting to jump in to what I was doing, and I was just saying, back off, everybody.
Okay. You good now?
I feel good now, yeah. I feel good now.
Okay. Well, let's do it then.
Okay. All right. So we have a submission.
We do.
This is a woman. And the subject of her email says, "How do I know I'm on the right track?" This is from Diane, who is a strategy consultant. I don't know what that is, but
strategy consultant.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but
it seems like she would know.
Well,
how to be on the right. Why is she asking us?
She doesn't say. She doesn't want to know what her job is. I just pulled briefly. I just glanced at
Diane,
her
we're
job.
calling you. What are you?
So, right, we're
help us
calling
out.
you. All right. So Diane says, "Hi, I know your show is for men, but I still listen, and I'm wondering if you work with women."
You know that if you want to have women listen to something, just say something's for dudes.
Well, it worked for Diane.
Diane's like, oh, what the?
But what do you say to get me to listen?
I'm going to withhold that information. I don't want to play my cards just yet.
All right. So she says she's just going to lay her situation out in case you'll consider working with her.
I have a story that if this is
well,
from
it's a woman.
Okay, how many hours of reading do we have?
There's like 4 paragraphs.
Oh my God.
It's not long. Paragraphs don't have to be long.
Guys email me and they're like,
we've already taken up what it would take to read the email in terms of time.
You're right.
Just because of your bitching.
Sorry, ladies.
Poor Diane. She's already getting knocked aside.
Poor Diane.
All right. So she says, "I'm not even sure how to ask this, but I feel like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. Working hard, pushing myself, trying to grow, but I still don't feel fulfilled. Or maybe I am, but it just doesn't feel how I thought it would. I've built a successful life. I'm independent. I have friends. But instead of feeling great about all this, I mostly feel exhausted and I go into dark places where I just hate everything. I make great money. I work with powerful clients and I should be excited about where my career is going. I keep wondering if I need to push through and be more disciplined. There's this underlying sense that I'm just being lazy and that's why I'm not happy. Part of me fantasizes about quitting everything, moving somewhere quiet, and opening a yoga studio. But that feels ridiculous, like some lazy escape fantasy.
She'd have to hang out with yoga teachers all the time.
I've worked too hard to get where I am. Shouldn't I want this life I've built? Shouldn't I feel proud instead of constantly questioning myself? Is this what growth and success is supposed to feel like? Or am I just making excuses for not being tougher, more disciplined, or more whatever I need to be?
Go ahead, help her out.
I feel for Diane.
I do too.
Well, I can really appreciate where she's come from. I cannot tell you the number of times where if I've been in some sort of growth group, and even I myself can talk about myself, but I can't tell you the number of times of groups I've been in with women who are trying to better themselves or do more with their job or grow their business in one way or another. And they're in the side chat, there's so many women that end up saying like, yeah, I did all this. I created all this. I've gotten to this place and these are the things that I wanted. And now I got really, really sick, or now I can't hold, like now I feel like a shitty parent, or, like there's just always something that is, seems like there's something that's off. And
I wouldn't say that's just for women. I think men just have a different way of it. Typically, if we're talking norms here, like that, there's a way that just doesn't get expressed. What did we're watching Bill Burr the other
like
day?
Bill Burr.
Yeah, just dropped dead.
Heart attack because you keep it inside. This one day
You die because you don't cry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. So this is very common.
Yeah.
Very, very common.
And the other, I'm thinking of a client that both you and I have worked with in the past where they were making choices that, based on how I knew them, the choices they were making, I remember thinking like, this isn't coming from you. This is coming from your parents. This is coming from your work culture. The decisions you're choosing for your life circumstance are not coming from what you're saying you really want.
Right. When
you're with me.
Right.
And I'm thinking of another client that I, worked with who wanted desperately to retire from the job that she hated. And she was like, I can't do it until I have a certain amount of money in the bank. Had no real, and she wasn't really in touch with.
There's these conditions.
There's
I can't do what I really want until I do X, Y, Z.
Well, and I think that what Diane is kind of pointing to, which I can relate to, which is like, she did want this. She thought, and she still thinks, I think that she still believes that she wants this. Right. She's actually challenging, like, how do I just know if I'm on track? How do I work harder? It must be me.
Yeah.
In that way. And I can personally relate in the sense that, like, I feel so happy just dicking off in the garden and with my bees and all that, and being in nature as much as possible, and yet I have gifts to give the world, and then when I lean in and as an entrepreneur to build those gifts, I feel stressed out. I feel really full. I feel challenged, and so I think, okay, I just need to lean in more. So
yeah.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are about that specifically, like people that they're not in a place where they're like, this isn't me necessarily. They're not willing necessarily to admit that yet. They might not even have that on their radar yet. But there's just this confusion around, I must need to just lead. This just must be my growth edge.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like there's this, I'm doing what I feel like I, quote, should be doing in order to be fulfilled. But I don't feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
I actually feel drained.
Yeah.
maybe even
in her case, exhausted and angry and
overwhelmed,
hating everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a voice that comes in and says, well, you're not doing enough, because if you were doing enough or you were doing it right, I'm going to use quote right here, you wouldn't feel this way. And so there's this doubling down. I need to do more, or I need to do it better, or I need to do it right.
Yeah.
And then, what I'm hoping for, that sense of fulfillment will come.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm just rereading in her email, she's saying, is this what success or growth is supposed to feel like? So there's this question of like, maybe this is just what it's like. Like there's not, because nobody's done that before. They haven't met their.
Diane, consider 5-MeO DMT.
Oh my God.
Just destroy your sense of self. I'm in a weird mood this morning.
You are.
Okay.
It's all right. Let's make it fun.
Maybe we don't do 5-MeO. Well, I think it's important to ask the question, who sets my goals? Who creates this ideal sense of identity? All right. Because most of us never challenge that. We never take a look at where this sense of direction comes from, of who we're supposed to be and what we, quote, should do. We just take it on. And there's an assumption, a very quick assumption, that if I do X, Y, and Z, that's what's going to be the fulfillment. But we never ask ourselves, well, where's that come from? Who comes up with that? And I can talk a bit about that. I've got a feeling you're going to want to reel me in, because I might go into teaching mode. But this is that's a big chunk of it, is not recognizing where this sense of direction comes from. Well,
I, as a female, I'm going to argue that a lot of that, I think, as you were saying that, I'm flashing in my mind, kind of Rolodex style, through hearing, growing up, and even watching my daughter grow up and hearing her tell me about her friends' conversations with their parents around how they want their children to be doctors, to be lawyers, to be dentists, to be whatever. And then, I flip to Super Bowl commercials where it's you're this kind of cool identity if you have this kind of car, this kind of life if you have this kind of car.
Right.
I think of fashion. I think of shows where there's really beautiful women on the shows, and then there's kind of this wow, that I want to look like that.
Yeah, I would say that there's at least 3 things that determine our direction in life if we're coming from this part of ourself, this way of being. Okay, and we developed this early on. And this is not a bad thing. It's necessary, but we can forget who we really are, okay, if we adopt this way of doing things. And so the first one is, what do I do to be safe? And I talked a bit about this in my first book. This book will make you dangerous, right? It's
not Bufo.
Not Bufo. Not 5-MeO. What do we do to feel safe? And safety in our world isn't necessarily life and death shit. I mean, that's a part of it. But what feels like safety now is more, I want to be comfortable.
Right. The client who said, I need a certain amount of money in the bank before I retire.
Yeah, certainty, right? I need security, et cetera. Those are really big deals, but we tend to think, oh, I need millions of dollars. I've had, I don't know how many guys I've talked to. It's multiple million, $10 million, $20 million. That's where I'll feel safe, right? Okay, wrap your head around that, okay? But for a lot of guys or a lot of people, that's what safety and security would mean. But there's a lot more that's packed in there. The second thing is scripts. So we go from safety into scripts, and this is the socialization. This is the programming. You're kind of talking about this with the
car
commercials and stuff. Well, some of that, but it's just who we've been. This is what I do to belong. right? I have there are expectations of me from others.
Yeah.
And what do I do to belong? So there's what do I do to be safe? There's what do I do to belong? And then the third one is what do I do to measure up, or what do I do to be enough? And this is around status. And this is where the social comparisons come from. And comparing ourselves to others is totally natural. We're social hierarchy, like we're bred to do that. It's in our wiring to know where we are in the hierarchy. So we are always looking around and wanting to make sure that we're not inferior, and we're looking for more ways to kind of figure out where we fit in the hierarchy and how important we need to be. And we want to be significant. It's a need to be significant.
But Diane's not writing about any of that in her email.
I get that she's not, but if she may look at what has gotten her on this path, and we might see that this path that she's on was determined because it checks some boxes. This is what will have me be safe. Mm-hmm. This is where I belong. And this is what has me be significant. Everything you talked about, she works with high-level companies. She's got this important job. She's there to make a lot of money. We're checking a lot of those boxes. And there's this romantic notion, if I just went and started a yoga studio or something like that, we might start to bump up against, like, well, you might not be safe if you did that. You might not have enough money. And, well, what would other people think of you? Well, that's not what somebody like you should do. Like, there's that should
she said
in there.
Ridiculous.
Right? And then it's like, well, wait a second. What about all the people that are so important? I'd be missing out on all that significance if I was just, owned a yoga center in a strip mall somewhere. So that stuff feels like it goes against our identity that we create, this ideal identity. So I'll just pause there, because without recognizing it, that largely governs our direction and which way we're heading in life. And if we create a lot of tension if we can't measure up to that.
And I mean, being somebody that's worked with people's heads for 30 years, I'm aware of the illusions that we weave for ourselves. Everything that you named in terms of safety and belonging and status, all of those come from the illusion, this sort of binary illusion, like, well, I'm not safe. The illusion that I don't belong. The illusion that there is some sort of hierarchical status in the, for me in this world, that matters still, that we're not in
or the
early
expectation
times.
that we'll ever have enough of that. Like it'll ever be enough. And maybe in some ways we come to a place, but there tends to be a tension of, we're always at risk of those things. And I think a part of us is like, I don't want to feel at risk anymore. So I need more. I need to stockpile more. And that drives a sense of greed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that people think I think people think that there's a finish line, which is like, this is what success looks like, or this is when I'll be free or fine
this is
or
set
good.
For life.
This is what it looks like to be set for life. But I don't think that. I think that's a moving target. It never stops because it's an illusion.
Right.
So everybody's constantly building it out of sand,
Yeah.
and that sand is always shifting. So
Anyway, back to Diane.
The thing about Diane is that, and I think other people too, like, can we speak to the person who actually they're not even there yet. They're not even at this place of like, oh, wow, maybe I need to look at where this is coming from. I mean, it's a good start in my opinion, but like, would you recommend even just the conversation would the conversation look different if you were talking to somebody who wasn't there yet even? They were just thinking like, is this what it's like to be on track? I'm just confused. I think that this is it, right?
I would say that their experience is telling them that something is off. And that we can get curious about what that experience is instead of dismiss the experience.
Right.
Which is what a lot of us do. There's I call it the drill sergeant. The drill sergeant says, don't be a little bitch.
Right.
Just keep pushing, put your nose down. And one day when you've done enough, then you can relax. Then you can enjoy yourself. Then you can go be whoever you want to be. But we haven't gotten there yet. You're not worthy of that yet. You got to put your head down and keep pushing along.
Yeah.
And some people that's what they'll do. I don't know if those people can be helped, but she can. If she's starting to ask these questions, we can start to take a look at what's driving her to be on this path. And she may choose to still do it, but she can start to have an awareness that this is really only one aspect of herself. This is the part of her that is necessary to survive and to fit in and belong. And it's necessary. I don't want to make it a bad thing, but it can eclipse all of who we are.
Yeah.
And what she's not doing is integrating who she really is and what she really wants in this lifetime.
I like this. So I want to talk, because this is, now you're kind of speaking my language of parts.
Yeah.
So what's the equation that could help her and others be with reality rather than this illusion that they're creating in their mind around, like, oh, in her case, I'm just being lazy and I'm not leaning in hard enough or whatever.
I think it's important to just get curious with these parts, like the part of her that doesn't feel safe. Well, what would you need to be safe? And to really draw it out. And when I've done this with people, when they lay it out on the table of what they would need to have this sense of security and certainty, often when they look at it, they're like, that sounds kind of silly. I don't know if that's even attainable or if that's really real, but nonetheless, that's what I've been telling myself and I've been aspiring to create.
So in her case, I want to just break this down for her. In her case, she would get curious about the part that feels exhausted, the part that goes into dark places where she hates everything. That might be two different parts. The part where she's got a part that is thinking she's lazy, as well as the part that fantasizes about quitting everything and like wanting to move somewhere else.
I would say that we get curious with the parts of her that can certainly benefit to get curious with those parts that you're talking about. But I would want to get curious with the parts of her that are driving her, the motivations, the ones that say, I don't care if I'm exhausted. I don't care if I'm, dealing with X, Y, and Z.
Like the one that says, I'm just making excuses for not being tougher, more disciplined.
Right. So what is driving that? What's driving this? I've got to get somewhere, and right here, right now is not it. And I would want to help that person unpack what's really driving them, so that they could take a look at that, because when it's unconscious, it's been there for so long.
Yeah, and in her letter, it sounds like what sounds like, and I'm going to pitch this to you because I'm curious how you'll respond to it. Is that's just what's driving it? Is that it sounds like there's a drive to just help her be more happy, because she's in that illusion of, this is just what I need to do to be more happy. I could totally see that part working overtime, thinking like, this is what is going to help you be more happy.
I don't like the word happy. Happy, I think, is a state that comes and goes. I would want to help her experience greater wholeness and more of a sense of peace. Wholeness meaning where she doesn't feel at war with herself. Right now, she's battling herself. She's torn in one direction, she's torn in another, and if she keeps this up, she might actually start to self-sabotage. She might start to do things that she's already harming herself. Yeah. But she might actually get to a place where she starts to self-sabotage. Or she might start to, whatever. She'll
cope with drinking or over-exercising or whatever.
Yeah, she's gonna head down a pretty dark path. She's already having dark thoughts, she says. Yeah. And she's even, especially when I hear people start to think about ways to escape, right? I just want to throw it all away. I just want to sell it and move on. I just like, there's these kind of reactive, fuck it, parachute kind of like, I'll figure it out later, but just I got to get out of here. Those are all like, oh, okay, we've disconnected from other aspects of ourselves, and we think that the only way out is to escape or to blow it up, whether it's a marriage or a career or whatever. So I think it's important to have a sense of wholeness. And if we think of our minds as like a boardroom, I'd want to hear from everybody, and I'd want to unpack what their commitments are. Like, what are their concerns? Because she wakes up in the morning and she's got a set of them in the morning. She's got another set of them in the afternoon. She's got another set of them at night that are telling her to eat or drink or go, people that have sex compulsions and whatever. Like,
I'm thinking of somebody that I work with, a body worker that I work with. And he tells me that his girlfriend, like, he was going to break up with her because she's kind of on track on one of these kind of high demand jobs. And she's unhappy in it. Basically, he didn't tell me this way, but what I gathered was that she's really unhappy. He said she's totally overstressed, but she comes home, she performs really well in her job, and then she comes home and she lets it all out on him. And so that's when you think about what you're saying around the parts and sabotaging, or you got to cope somehow, you got to like work with whatever else is in you. It's got to come out somehow.
Yeah, there's splits. There's like, I go and put this act on, I play this role during the day, and then I come home and I turn into another person, or I've got to deal with all of this energy that I don't know how to deal with it. But wholeness would look like, hey, everybody's got concerns. Everybody, these people over here are worried about my safety. These people are worried about me belonging. These people are worried about me being enough. And then there's also like, what actually has me feel great? What am I here to do in this lifetime? What has me feel alive? What has me feel free? Those are big concerns too. And really they're aiming at the same place, because the ideal self is like, this is what's going to help us feel free and alive. It's got a theory. If we just become this ideal, or we just reach this finish line, that's where it all happens. And so the idea is that if we deprive ourselves, if we hold our breath underwater for X years, then we'll get there. And so they all want the same things, but we can do it without deprivation. So wholeness is getting curious with all those parts, and sometimes just laying them out. And when we lay them out, sometimes they just sound young. They sound like, once I get here, everything will be great. And you hear yourself say that, and you're like, that's just not true. That's not how things work.
But I do think it's really important to you talked about an ideal self. And when I think ideal self, I don't think about working hard and being like super fast, money maker successful. I think about ideal, like not necessarily that. So I think of it a different way. I think of it like, the programming that we were talking about, like we create a certain persona that's rooted in some aspirational life. And I think it's really important what you're saying. Yes. And I think part of that process, it's really important for, if somebody's being worked with here, to be able to point out, to have the reflection that they're attached to that identity. Because it does, I think so much of this it's just all identity stuff. Like she was like, how do I know I'm on track? She talked about this is what success looks like. So to me, those are inherent statements that have more to do with who am I?
Yeah. It's almost like, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Give me and it's easy to highlight the achievers here. You know, they're the ones that are usually the most visible on this rat race kind of a thing. This kind of like, I'm going to reach the summit. But you're right. All of us have some version of this, and we might be the opposite of that. We might, my ideal thing, I'm not an achiever. I'm someone who does X, Y, Z. So I've seen versions of this idealism, whether they were spiritual, I'm using air quotes as spiritual, or the Jeff Spicolis of life, like, oh, I'm not the rat racer dude. But still, their lives are shit. They can't pay for anything, and they're always sponging off of folks. So there are ways that this can show up where we're essentially still reacting to things instead of being more innately driven. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's really easy to see cases where there are people that are like, hey, look at me. I've attained everything that people, our culture says is great for us to attain and be considered successful. And I'm a drunk, or I'm like, I hate my wife. Like my wife and I don't talk, or like whatever it is, right? I don't talk to my kids.
But it doesn't have to just be that. I know of people, like how I grew up, it was a little more blue collar, and an ideal man worked hard, didn't complain.
Yes.
But
held it all in,
dropped dead. No, but there was a lot of that. Don't be weak. There was this thing of like, you had to be a certain way and act a certain way, because if you did that, you'd be cast out, you'd be criticized. So you got to look for the things that we're afraid to reveal about ourselves, and recognize we're reacting against those things, and we're organizing our lives around them or to avoid them. It's largely loss aversion rather than I'm moving towards what I really want.
And this might be going a little too far down a wormhole, but because the letter came confused, and there is a confusion with illusion here. So the one thing that I have a question about and want to pick apart is when our behaviors and our reality don't align, because that's something that when I've talked to people about identity or values or whatever, that's something I help them look at, right? It's like, okay, well, you say this is important. How much of your time, energy, money is going towards this, that kind of thing. And so, or attention is going towards this. So, but if you're programmed to just work hard, to not be somebody that shares your feelings, to not be this, then your behaviors will align with that.
Yes.
So, and so if they say they value, well, they might not know what they value.
That's the small self that's determining. That's the ideal identity that says do X, Y, and Z. And we can be aligned with that, but it doesn't allow us to experience freedom or aliveness or genuine love, genuine connection, and a genuine peace of mind. And that's how we know that something's off. And that's why I said, let's come back to what Diane's experiencing. Because that friction is letting us know that even if she's executing things well, it's still taking her down the path of feeling trapped or drained or isolated or bored or overwhelmed.
This is something that I'm interested in talking about more, because this is I'm a huge fan of wholeness, as you know, and have been as a gestaltist for a long time. And I know that this is something that you carry the flag for too, more and more in your work and in the book that you're writing. And so I want to focus on this question, what brings you peace of mind? And the reason for that is that I have experienced this, and I've watched so many other people, clients and friends alike, when that question, or a version of that question is posed, the answer tends to come in extreme parts. So I'm going to use the IFS lingo, like parts, because what brings me, if you were to ask me what brings me peace of mind, it has nothing to do with my work. Like the first answer is not anything to do with my ambition or how I want to further the field of transpersonal psychology or anything like that. Help my fellow, colleagues in their wholeness, or people in their wholeness. That's not the first answer. If I didn't include all of the other things that do actually have a seat at the table, they're just not necessarily speaking up and answering the question, what brings you peace of mind?
If we think of wholeness means that we're integrating the parts of us that have concerns about security and belonging and significance. And so I want to watch out, because part of this is the escape route.
Right. That's what I'm trying to speak to.
And that can get into that bypassing thing. Like, I'm just going to live and love and
live in the middle of nowhere. I'm just going to travel all the time.
My passion, and it'll just fall into place. And I talk like...
Who do you talk like right now?
I don't know who that is. Just follow your dreams and order my $300 kit to do that. And here's the picture of my ass in a thong. So... I'm not a porn star anymore. I'm now anyway, I'm a spiritual teacher. It takes into consideration all of it. And it keeps us from playing this either or thing. There's this duality that we can get into, which is kind of the more
keeps us from that.
Right. Where there's this fear-based thing that we can do, or the survival-based thing that we do. That's necessary. And then there's this kind of, I'm going to use the word soul. There's like, what are we really called to do in this lifetime? And that's hard to do. We need a small self to help us navigate this, quote, real, tangible world. And so there's...
I also think that what we called to do in this lifetime gets co-opted by the whole small self and success. And what we're called to do can't just be live in the middle of somewhere where I don't travel anymore and you open a yoga studio and a strip mall.
Exactly. Like, so it's going to be different for all of us. And this is why the wholeness piece is critical. Is you want to learn who the folks are in the boardroom. because the small self can hijack and mimic soul. It can look like that. And this is what cult leaders and really powerful people like, oh, they're I'll tell you what to do. I've got the path for you. Like that's how you know. Like it's not, let me help you draw out your path. Let me help you draw out your wisdom. It's here. I've got it for you. So anyway, but the small self loves to co-opt things, anything that can help it make money, that can help it be more significant, that can help it be more admired. It will co-opt anything in order to do that. So, but anyway, back to this duality between here's the things that I do that are sucking the life out of me, and here's this thing I'll just escape, or I'll do spiritual bypassing, which is a big problem. Which is like, oh, if I get into psychedelics or I get into these retreats, and that's my life. I go live out there, but then this other life isn't what I want to be doing. We create this either or thing, and wholeness is about how do we be an adult and work with all of this? How do we welcome all of these into the room? Because I believe peace of mind comes when we're not denying either or.
That's what I was wanting to get to.
Real peace of mind comes from I'm taking care of the responsibilities, the things that I care, like that I have to do on a day-to-day basis, whether I have a family or I've just got bills to pay or I got a dog or I got a house or whatever. I'm taking care of those things. I'm not neglecting them. And then I'm also listening to the deeper part of me and honoring it in a way that it allows, I can align my life with that. And that to me is the work. That's what I love to help people do, is to relax some of the kind of crazy things that the small self thinks we need to do in terms of safety or scripts or status, kind of bring those back into perspective. And then to find more of a North Star instead of this ideal thing of this person I'm supposed to be or I should be to finally be enough. Fuck that. What if we started from being enough and then learn to cultivate who we, like a sense of connection with who we really are and who we're really here to be in this lifetime, or we're becoming in this lifetime, what's speaking through us and as us. And wow, what if I could use all of these skills that I've developed to create a life that honors that? But I still have my bills to pay. I still have the responsibilities I have. There's no escaping that. And I'm not trying to escape that anymore. But the wholeness piece means that I am able to wrap my arms around all of it.
I'm really glad that you're defining it in this way. I feel like we've thrown around the word wholeness a lot in our conversations, but my sense is that this is really the first time we've unpacked what it really is and means in working with people or in any given person's.
I think wholeness sometimes I've heard it in like kind of more the spiritual context. It's like it denies these fear-based aspects in some way, or these survival aspects, like they're kind of lesser than. Even the term small self can seem like, ooh, we don't want that anymore. Well, it's like, yeah, I'm going to cut my arm off and then I'll be whole.
Right.
It's like, no.
Yeah.
That's part of me too.
Yeah.
That's an aspect of me too.
Yeah.
How do we work with all of this?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So anything else you would say to Diane specifically? Do you work with women? Do you think that she's on the right track? What, is anything else that you haven't said that you would want her to know?
I think in Diane's case, if I'm coming back to her original question, I think it's first important to just get clear about what's driving her and motivating her to be on this path. And that perhaps in her case, doubling down and doing more or doing it, quote, right, isn't really what needs to happen. But her willingness to take a look at what is driving her and then to choose. Recognize that she wakes up and chooses this every day. Is that something she wants to choose? And to recognize that in the process of doing that, there will be parts of her that say, but you can't not do this. It feels like death. You can't not do, if you don't do this, everything will fall apart. You'll hear these catastrophic things. You'll end up on the street. You'll end up, it'll be terrible. No one will, what will people say? Yeah. You'll hear all of the things that the small self is trying to avoid. And okay, thank you. But just to listen, right, of why it has, what is it really fighting against, or what is it what loss is it trying to prevent? That's a big one. And just to start to look at it. And then there might be a way to relax some of that and recognize maybe I don't need XYZ to be okay. Maybe I don't need to be this version of me in order to be enough. Maybe, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll hear those scripts, the loser, you're not blah, 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 you're a quitter, you're being mediocre or whatever. Okay, thank you.
Maybe it's not lazy in her case, or maybe she can still be independent and make money and all of that.
Yeah.
Maybe that doesn't go away if she...
Yeah, and there's more to life than proving you're not lazy or proving you're not mediocre. Like, that's what a lot of us are doing. How do I make sure I prove I'm not a loser today? How do I prove that I'm not mediocre today? How do I prove that I'm not lazy today? And we just start to look at how much of our life is proving we're not something.
Well, and I think proving comes after. That's what I was talking about with the identity piece. Like, we get really attached to the identity of some idealized persona, or a persona that we took on that did help us in a lot of years. Because I mean, I think about, people that I've worked with, and I can think for my own self when I was parting a little bit more with being the identity of a psychotherapist, and including more on my own wholeness and how I work, and thinking like, well, other people have said, but I'm this. And me being like, well, who am I if I say I'm not a psychotherapist and people ask what I do? Like, what do I say?
Answer the question.
I still can't say.
Well, here's what usually comes up. If you go into that question, you go a few layers down. Without this, I'm a loser. Without this, I'm nothing. Without this, it's something bad. Most of us are starting from this place
like a
of
not enough.
Yes. Without this job, without this income, without these people around me,
or identity,
without this thing. It's not from a place of enough. It's like, yeah, I'm good as I am.
Right.
It's like, no, if you take this away, then I'm starting from a place of I'm a piece of shit, or I'm not enough, or I'm a loser, or whatever. Okay, that's what we're really trying to avoid. That's why we're striving so hard for this other stuff. If we were starting from a place of enough, then it would be a game. It'd be fun. It'd be playful. But the stakes are so high because there's so much to reveal or so much to lose.
So it's mostly 80 or 90% of the time people are working with their kind of loss aversion. All the parts are organized around aversion.
If we started from, I'm already enough. We started from already.
That's what I was saying around, it presumes that we don't belong. We presume that we're not safe.
Yeah, it starts from that place of the bad place. And so every day is a fight. I've got to get to this other place. And the future is where it's going to be fine. But where I am today is not acceptable.
Not okay.
And there's a fear that, well, if you accept who you are, then, you're not enough. Like there's weird mindfuck games that can happen, which keeps us on that kind of aspirational thing. Now, it's cool to create. It's cool to move towards things. It's cool to go and do that stuff. The trick is watching when we attach our self-worth to it. And this is the way that I'm going to prove that I'm XYZ. Now we're getting into the trap. And so for Diane, it would be looking at what she's running away from and what she's relying on X, Y, and Z to ensure that she's enough and safe enough or significant enough or belonging enough, whatever it is. And then just to see if that's really true, and to just see if there's a more grounded way. Is there something else she wants in this lifetime? Is there something else that she feels called to do in this lifetime? And she might need to take some time to cultivate that awareness.
Yeah, without judgment, I would say.
Without judgment, like, what's really there? And that's a beautiful place to be surprised. Like, oh, wow, I had no idea this is what really lights me up. This is what really has me feel alive.
Yeah,
and it might go against that identity. And I don't know, I think that's kind of fun sometimes too. It certainly happened for me in my life. So.
How did it happen for you?
I would have never, there was a time in my life where if you told me this is what I was going to be doing for a living, I'd be like, you're out of your freaking mind. So there were quite a few ego deaths to get here, but this is where I feel most aligned.
I'm glad that we had this conversation today. And Diane, I wish you the best.
Thank you, Diane.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.